Hello everybody and welcome to my live stream here from Cairn Hill Art Studio in County Cavan in Ireland. My name is Margaret McKenna and today we're going to paint an acrylic painting of a view that is really very dear to me. So first of all, a little bit about myself for those of you who don't know me. My name is Margaret McKenna and I'm originally from Dublin, and I've been down here on the Cavan-Meath border for the last 20 years. I've always worked in art. Went to the College of Art for 4 years and then working in animation for about 10 years, working on films as Don Bluth Studios, such as All Dogs Go to Heaven, Land Before Time, Thumbelina and others. And I've been working in children's illustration work in Folens Publishing, amongst others. And for the last 15 years or so, I've been doing teaching in the community for different groups, and at my home and in my cabin now, and also for the local educational training board. So without more ado, let's get on and do a bit of painting. So the view I'm going to paint today is, well, it's a view that's very precious to me. It's a view right across from where I live, actually, and it's a view of the Loughcrew Hills. Indeed, this studio, Cairn Hill Cabin, is called the view because on top of one of the hills there is a cairn which is 5,000 years old, over that, and indeed older than the pyramids. It was one of a complex of cairns in that whole area, and it is indeed an Irish area is called Sliabh na Cailleach, which is the hill of the witch. Not a witch on a broomstick, but more like an ancient goddess, which was revered in the whole Celtic area, Scotland, Ireland, Wales indeed. And it's a beautiful area. It's absolutely fantastic. The view is just amazing. Highly recommended. A really hidden gem in Ireland. Today especially, and this weekend, is particularly relevant to this area because it is the equinox. And on the equinox, the light enters the chamber of Cairn T and hits the backstone at the sunrise. And it illuminates amazing ancient decorative artwork, like spirals, something like we have here, zigzags, flower shapes that have been interpreted in so many years, ways over the years. So without more ado, we're going to start the picture. Now, what I'm doing today is what I'm using today is acrylics. So acrylics come in various types. You can buy them in tubes like this, or this cheaper type like this, which the pigment wouldn't be as strong. But to be honest, I often use them, especially if you don't really want a really strong pigment, if it's just a mixing color. And indeed, you can also get them in tubs such as this, which are very handy for the larger volumes of paint, like white, which we use a lot of. I often buy them in the larger tubs because you go through a lot of white. So I have a blank canvas here, as you can see, which is primed. And it doesn't have to be as expensive one. Sometimes you may need to get one and put a little extra priming over it so that it doesn't soak. But it's, this isn't a very expensive one either. So now what we're going to do is how I approach a picture before I even start painting. How I think of a picture is this. You try and capture an atmosphere in a picture when I'm painting. So to me, the picture we're doing, the one of the cairns, actually, if you want to check my Facebook page, you can see what I'm doing. You can look down a couple of posts and you'll see there's two pictures of a view across towards the cairn, and I have a post about it, about that it's for today's live stream. So if you want to have a quick check and have a look at that, you'll see what we're doing. Unfortunately, I have to work from my camera, from my phone, because I had hoped to do it from another laptop, but my lead from my laptop decided to break yesterday. So I have to do it from my phone. But the main reason I want to paint when I paint a picture is to try and capture what I see in the picture. And I took this picture, this view, last weekend, just on the eve, really, or just after we'd been told that everything had changed as regards our social distancing, or everything was closing. And I went out there and I saw this most beautiful view of a most peaceful sunset on the hills, and I just thought, this still stays the same. And that's what I want to capture in this picture. I want to capture the serenity and the peace and the light and shade of a picture. When I do a picture, I kind of think of it in terms a bit like I suppose you could say like a stage. You have the backdrop, and when you look at the backdrop, initially you have your back scenery, and then you put in your props in front. So if you can imagine that the sky is the backdrop, the sky is your scene at the back, and then we gradually work to the main pieces that go in front, like the foreground. and there's trees or whatever there is in foreground, or people or whatever. So I'm going to start with basically marking in the picture, just roughly where everything is. As I like both the lighting on one, and I like the angles on the other, because I like the fact that you're walking into the picture more in one. So we're going to mix a little bit of, this is cerulean blue, and I'm going to mix it carefully with the white. Now, I don't dive a big lump of white into it, because if you do, you'll end up it'll just go completely blue straight away. So you just feed the color into it, feed it out into it. And I'm just using this literally to mark the page. You could use a different color. I don't usually use pencils or anything like that. So just going to do a line across here like this, roughly. And that is roughly where my horizon line is. And on top of that, we have a sort of an area here of land here. And then we have the hills coming across here. Just going to time it. These are open to change. The other thing, of course, is that I don't get caught up on my bit of change afterwards. So I don't panic if I say, oh my God, that's wrong. It doesn't really bother me. We can always change things along the way. Now we have a fence coming down here. And the reason I think this is nice is there's a fence. And already you can start to see what I'm talking about. Because I have a cloud coming along this way. And already, if you look, so these are the hills. This is the clouded area here, and a little bit of blue sky. This is the fence here. Now, if you think about, I might bring it down a little bit actually, it's just a little bit high. Now, already these lines here bring you into the picture. Straight away, you're being brought into the picture when you put in lines. So I might put this a little bit heavier so you can see it on screen. You will see it heavier anyway as I paint it, but that's probably just. So this line here, I'm exaggerating a little bit just for the sake of explanatory reasons, and this line here, they bring you into the picture and they give a depth straight away. And I think depth in a picture is such an important part of it, because it means that you're not just looking at a flat image. You're looking at a scenery. You're part of the scenery. Then you're on that road. You're in that view. So what I'm going to start with, I'm going to use a nice wide brush. So a nice big wide brush here. And I'm going to use the same color, the blue and the white, the cerulean blue. The reason I use cerulean blue is because it has a nice sky blue. It has a nice sky blue effect. Some blues are much better for, like ultramarine is a really good blue, if that makes sense. It doesn't have any hint of any other colors in it. So it means that you can actually use, it's a great mixing blue. If you're mixing grays, which I'll be showing you in a few minutes, and it will actually make it a very true gray. Whereas some of the blues have quite a greeny hue to them, or a purpley hue. This is slightly more purpley on the ultramarine, but if you want to get a blue, I would always recommend an ultramarine. If you want one blue and you can't afford another blue, or you don't have options of another blue, get an ultramarine. But for this now, I'm going to use a cerulean because it's quite a nice. I'm going to put it in. I'm hoping to get this done quite quickly, because it's almost like just capturing the image. It's like a moment in time, what I call a picture, rather than a detailed picture where you can work on. I could work on this forever afterwards. You could keep building it up and building it up. But I'm hoping that I can capture what I want to capture in the time allotted, which is, we'll see how long that is, whatever time it is, but it shouldn't be too long. Now, this is basically the clear blue sky coming through in the middle. And I'm going to put a little bit just above the horizon. It's a little bit whiter. And if you're doing a plain blue sky, say it was a really sunny day. Hello, Karen, how are you? How's things? Picture's fuzzy, is it? Maybe I'll put a lighter on. Can you see there, Karen? If you just let me know. Can you see me clearly? Two Karens here. Karen Tanner. It could be the sunlight. Let's see if I can see it a bit quicker. I'll have to do a live stream. I'm just getting used to the lighting on these. I could pull back the blinds, but I don't want to get the sunlight in too. So maybe if I do it this way. This is open to movement. So you'll have to bear with me, everybody joining in, because I'm still used to this, getting used to this. So in fact, if it's backwards too, it doesn't help. Now, Veronica, how are you? Can you see me? Can you see this okay? And I'm not sure, some people are saying that it's not very clear, and hopefully it'll be a bit clearer as I get along. And as I say, as the days go by, I hope to get a bit better at doing this as a technology end of it. But and I'm not on my own laptop, which I think is has a better camera on it, to be honest, unfortunately. So, okay. No, still fuzzy, might be your connection. Veronica, how can you see it? Okay, if you can let me know. I'm going to pull back the blind. Sorry, this is live broadcasting. Here we go. Ah, the joys of it. Okay, I might try this. Hold on 1 minute. Yeah, it's up there. Now, is that any clearer? Anybody? Can you let me know? If you let me know, just let me know anyway. Okay, so I'll just continue anyway. Okay, so we've got the lights. We're going to bring a very light, very pale light blue across the bottom here. And this is just really, and if we're doing, as I was saying earlier on, yes, if you're doing a solid white or blue sky, say it's a beautiful bright blue day or bright blue sky day, what is a good way to do it is think of it's always deeper at the top and it works to paler at the bottom. But I'm going to have some cloud in this picture as well. So I'm going to start by actually putting a nice lot of white in. It's a little bit of, I'm not even washing my brush. I'm just going to blend it in here like this. So it's going to be, we'll come back to this after. I'm not finished with the sky and I'm just going to get an overall on it, because another tip really is not to work in one area all at once, because if you do, it's amazing how it looks so different when you add the other colors in. So it's often better to just get a rough overall, I find, color on the canvas, and then you can kind of work back into different areas. Now we're just going to build this up bit by bit. And bring that down like that. Now, I'm just going to add a little bit of a purple shade, or a little bit of a shadow shade in it. Does anybody, I just want to see, does anybody can see it okay there? Just let me know if you can see it. You might be able to see it as it goes along. The lighting is, it's just have to readjust this a few times. I probably have to get used to this bit by bit doing the live stream as to what way the lighting is. And I don't know what the camera really is like on this either. So now, and of course the sunlight now is coming in quite bright. Okay, so we're going to put a shadow here, shade on this. So for the shadow, I'm mixing a little bit of ultramarine and a brown. So we have an ultramarine here, and I have a brown here, and a white. A grey made with a brown and a blue is a much better way of doing it than a black and a white. If you use a black and a white, it becomes a very, very false shade. I'm going to have to put the thing back. And apologies on this live stream, because I really have to fix this curtain, because it's going to be too bright and you won't see anything. Let's get this here. I think that's better. At least I can see the canvas anyway, because the sunlight was coming across. Now, so we want to get a shade mixed with the two colors, the brown here and the blue here on the top, okay? And the white. And if we mix them carefully together, we'll get a gray shade. So we'll get the brown here, there's a bit of blue. So we're getting a dark gray. See that dark gray color there? And we can add the white into that bit by bit. So gradually adding more and more white. like that. So we're getting it. Now, we're going to add a little bit of this into this area here. And I'm actually going to add a dab of purple into this violet shade. Just a little bit in. Because what we'll do then is drag that in. It just gives it a nice little hue, a little extra little kick to it, as it were. So I'm going to drag that into it. And I might even put a bit more. You can just put the purple in straight away. The great thing about acrylic, it does dry very fast. That's the advantage, disadvantage, depending on what way you look at it. If it's great for if you're working to do exhibitions, it's really handy. But unfortunately, the disadvantage is that when you go to work on it the following day, it's very hard to do. You have to kind of paint over it more. So this is very dark, as you can see at the moment, but I don't mind because I'm just going to drag that into that. We'll come back with the white on top of it, so we don't panic about it at all. And I'm holding the brush, rather than holding it like this, I'm holding it like this at this stage. One of the things to make sure you do is don't hold it like a pencil. Don't hold it really hard at the top. Hold it nice and light up high. So I'm going to just touch that along like that. I'm going to bring a little bit at the bottom like that. And I want to get the feeling of the light on the picture. So I'm just going to put light grey here. Very light. I'm going to fuzz it in just very lightly. Often it's the lightest touch you need. Just barely. As my mum used to say, whisper it across when she was an artist, and she would always say, whisper it. And I used to wonder what she meant. And then years later, I realised it was just barely bring it in. So the touch is so important when you're painting. Just a touch of it. Smudge it in gradually. Now I'm going to come back to that in a minute. I'm going to add a little bit more now. I'm going to start to try and do a little bit of our scenery. So the background, we have a very light hills. So for the hills, I'm going to use quite a light yellow-green type color, and I'm going to add a little bit of white to that. Just going to get nice and pale, and I'm going to use a tiniest bit of yellow ochre. Now, yellow ochre is almost like the mustard shade. It's like French mustard almost. And I'm going to use a little bit of that just to calm it down. Don't make it too much; it gets kind of mucky. So just a little tiny bit, just to give it a calm it down. And this is just a basic color I'm going to put across here, and it's literally just a very basic shade across the hills at the moment, okay? Because we'll come back to all of this later. It's just really to get a color on the hills, to get a color on the overall canvas. Because as you get a color on the canvas, it means then you can actually see what you're doing. You can see where you need to touch up bits. You can see how you can even just see how you're getting into the picture, if it's starting to look right regarding the perspective. You get to look at it, you're working one shade against the other, because often dark against light, shadow is so important in a picture, and how one plays off against another is so important. So I'm going to go back into some of this color just a little bit in here as well. Okay. So you can refer back to the page. If you refer back to the page, you'll see the picture as I'm doing, so you'll be able to relate to them. Now, I'm going to do a darker shade on the lower half here. So I'm using this is it's called sap green. I think it's quite a dark sap green. Some sap greens are a little more grassy than that. I would find that a little bit harsh. So again, I'm going to use some of our yellow ochre shades that we used earlier on, the one that's got a little dab of green in the middle of it now. Okay, so I'm going to take a bit of that mustardy kind of shade, and I'm going to take it to the side a little bit. And I'm just going to start by basically, for now, I'm actually going to color the whole lot, basically. Just very rough. Now, this is just really how I should use a bigger brush than this. Actually, I'm going to use the big brush. Just dab that there. Get up the bigger brush. I might as well. Now, so we're just going to cross here, and we're going to just, at the moment, I don't mind going backwards and forwards. I'll talk to you a bit more about the direction, stroke up direction in a while. But we can just, and remember, you can look back at this afterwards when it's recorded. So you don't have to look at it all right now. You can go back and look at it again. So I'm just going to work the whole thing through. A bit more yellow ochre. And I'm allowing the different shades to come through, as you can see. I can even add little bits of cadmium yellow into it, the yellow there at the top. And we will work on, you see, you can work nice little different shades going through it. So, but as I come closer to the bottom, I will now we're just going to go the whole way down here. Now, if you're doing a wide canvas, I often would go around the edges and the sides as well, but this is just a narrow canvas, so I'll just work to the very edge. Now you can see it's starting to come together now. Hopefully I'll have my own camera next, my own laptop next week, because I think the camera is a little bit better on it. So unfortunately, I didn't. It broke. You know, these things happen when you're going to need them. After 8 years of having the lead, it never broken. All of a sudden it does. Just when you go to do something like this. So anyway, that's the way it goes. Okay, so here we go. So that's it roughed in. So you can see now you have sky, mountains, and we have the grass as well in front. So now we're going to come back a little bit on the sky. Now that I have it marked out, I can just see where everything is. I just want to make sure I get this right again. No, I keep turned the wrong way. There we go. Now, so let's move the chair back a little bit so I can get a better angle at it. Now I'm going to go back and do a little bit more on the sky itself. So I'm going to add a little bit of a yellowy shade into the sky as well, because there's a glow. There's a little glow from the sunlight, because remember, it is evening sun. So if you think about evening sun, the evening sun has a glow of a kind of a yellowy, goldy, yellowy, orangey. There's a nice orange here actually. There I might use, in fact, and I might just put that on with it, and I'll show you what I'm going to do next. Put a little bit here. We'll see what we come up with. It's almost like experiments that go along. You know, you just play along as you go along. Don't panic about it. Just kind of you know, relax and enjoy it. Don't ever get into a panicky stage of the painting, because it's meant to be enjoyable. Don't, you know, it's not worth it. It's so relaxing. Now, see what I've done here. Okay, it's hard to see on this camera. I know, I do but what we're doing is it's a little tiny bit of yellow, tiny bit of orange, and I'm bringing a little bit of our white, a good lot of white, sorry, into it. And we're going to tip it along the edges of it, because the sunlight is over here. The sunlight is over to the west of the country, or the west, sorry, rising east, sets in the west. Yes, sorry, I had to think there for a second. It's over to the right anyway here, because the sunlight comes over here, and I'm just going to tip it along the edges here like that. I'll post a picture of this actually when I've done it up on Facebook anyway, a photograph of it, so you'll be able to see what it turned out like properly, hopefully. Now, as you see, I'm just doing this very roughly. As you can see, I'm always doing it in lines at the moment. I'm not really being too fussy about what way I put it on. I just want to get a bit under here. I'm just going to use it very softly. Now I take it off the brush. Often painting is about how much paint you don't have on your brush, or how little you have on it, and how dry your brush is, rather than putting big blobs of paint on it. So you actually just have the paint, and now what it is, I take it off. I'm not wetting the brush. I'm actually just drying it off on a piece of towel, and I'm just going to smudge that very softly, like that. Just very softly, just. Get that. And already the paint is drying, and of course it's warm in here too. But it doesn't, if your atmosphere is warm, I would just say it's an advantage and a disadvantage, because with paint, oils give you a lot more, much easier when you're doing oils on one level, because you can come back to oils and you can mess around with it forever. But then whereas acrylics, it dries so fast. But having said that, it can be an advantage, especially if you have to do something in a hurry for somebody and they want to have a painting done, and you have to do a commission and they want it done for the next day, or next day, you know what I mean, soon, or an exhibition. If you want to get a painting into an exhibition, and it'll be dry, whereas in oil painting it's much more slow process. Now I'm adding little bits of purple into this, just little flickers of the purple shade, and I'm smudging that back in. I'm just smudging it, just little tips of it here somewhere. Do you know, another thing I find is a handy tip is to squint your eyes at a picture. When you squint your eyes at a picture, you can actually see it almost like as if it's at a distance. Now you might see it's a very dark purple I put in there. So sometimes people, oh my God, I've made a mistake. I put a big lump of paint color on. Don't worry, just smudge it in. Smudge it in. Sometimes you do those things by mistake, and you think, oh no, I've made a mess of it. And you know what? They end up being the nicest bits of the picture. When you go and think, oh my God, when I look at this, I'm glad I did that. It was an accident, pure accident. So don't panic. Never panic in a picture. No matter what you do, it's always, even if it's always salvageable. If that's the word. Yes, always is, because you can just work your way through it like that. I might try a live stream actually in the evening time, because perhaps the lighting might be a bit better on the paintings. It's hard to know. With sunlight, it's very, very bright, and the contrast in here is just, it probably is not the best. But actually, the other day when I did it, it was a rather dull day, and I think that might be easier on a dull day than on a sunny day. So anyway, I'll get used to it. I'll get used to it. We'll get it there somehow or other. In the meantime, I'll just do what I can. All right, all I can do. So, okay, so here we go. I'm just going to put a little bit up here, and I might come back to that on the later stage when I just see my little bit flicker of light in there, just to give it an extra little bit of that. There. Right, okay. Now, I'm going to work on the hills, so I just want to have a look at my phone here for a minute, my picture. Now, the great thing about a phone is that you can actually blow it up too, which is great. I can work and see what I have to do in different areas. Now, what there is on the hills, we have anyone who knows the hills across there will know that there are forests on some parts of it, and there's clear areas in other parts. Patrickstown Hill, which is the hill on the left, has quite an amount of forest on it, and it has also got rough grasses, like where the trees have all been cut down, and it's left it with a kind of just kind of dead grass, really, and dead undergrowth. So I'm going to just leave my phone here for a minute and just keep tapping it. And I'm going to mix the color I had up here in the sky, that light color with the yellow and the white and the orange. I'm going to add a tip of brown into that, and even a tip of my green, wherever my green is gone, my dark green. So I'm kind of mixing around different shades. So it's kind of getting a mucky, slightly mucky shade, I suppose, a mucky, browny, greeny shade. And I'm going to put a bit of that on top of our first hill here. And this is sort of that dry grass sort of area you get. It's a bit of a light area in the front here, so I'll just leave. This is Patrickstown Hill. Now, it is a beautiful walk over to Patrickstown Hill. Absolutely amazing walk. You can go between the trees, and I've only done it for the first time. Actually, it was last September, and all the years I've been there, I never actually went up Patrickstown Hill. So I'm mixing a few of all these sort of greeny, browny shades together, and I'm sort of bits of green, bits of brown, bits of the white, bits of different shades of browny greens together, with a little bit of white and the yellows and everything. It's really a mix of everything, really. And I'm just going to Now I'm going to get a smaller brush here for a moment. And I'm going to get my dark green color. I'm going to mix it with a bit of brown to deepen it down, because we're going to get a very dark shade where the actual trees are growing themselves. And these are they're all evergreens. They're like, well, no, there's not actually. There's different shapes, there's different types of trees. They've got quite a mix up there. Actually, they've got some, there's some of this what do you call those spruce trees or whatever they're called. And then they have Sitka spruce, is it? And then they have ordinary deciduous trees as well. So I'm going to bring this across here. I see I'm holding the brush nice and light at the top. And again, I'm taking a dryish brush. I'm going to take it off, tap it, and just smudge a bit of this because it's a little sort of a... I have another nice brown here somewhere. Where is it? Oh, here. I'm going to use this brown. It's a kind of a... It says raw sienna here, but I wouldn't really call that a raw sienna on the packet. It's a kind of a mixture between the yellow ochre color and the burnt sienna, but that's burnt sienna, which is like a reddish brown. So I'm going to bring a bit of that, those two browns together. And I'm just going to smudge it a little bit in between. Sorry, I just wrote on my hand there. I sometimes use my arm, which is not necessarily recommendable, but I recommend it. Now, I want to get down now. Yes, we're going to just get roughly where these are. Now, we're working on it, and I'm not finished here. I'm just literally just working them out here because I might come back and make this a bit longer. This middle hill now here, this is the main hill. So I'm going to use my nice light green with my yellow. And I'm going to highlight some of the side of the mountain here. I'll highlight a bit. So I'm going to come back on that. Actually, it's a little bit big. I'll go back here on this. Could establish the shape of this hill a bit better now. And this is really the one that has that, is the focal point in the way of the picture. I'm adding a bit of yellow into it, just over the side. In fact, I might just put a pure yellow on it here. Down like that. I'm going to add a little bit of our ultramarine. Is a great color for shading. This color here, the ultramarine, the dark blue. So I'm going to use a bit of it again, like we did before earlier on, and except I'm going to put it into. We use it for the shadow on the clouds, but this time I'm going to use it with my green, and I'm just going to add a tiny bit of brown into it as well. And I'm just going to use it as to wash across here this side of the hill. I'm going to work my way across these hills now. A little bit of water on it. I'm going to come back in with the lighter green here as well. And this would be put a bit of yellow into it as well. Just give it a little bit of falling off my hands. A little bit of yellow there on the side. I'll come back with our darker shade here a little bit here just to shadow this hill. And we have the cairn on the very top here. We're going to come back a bit to that in a while. I'm going to add a little more light on the top of on the side of Patrickstown Hill, because Patrickstown, it has a little more than I gave it a little bit too little. That was a little bit over dramatic there with that big dark bit. So I'm going to come back and lighten that up a bit. And as I said, this is the great part of it. Painting is that you change it as you go along and you just work with it. And I'm going to put a dark bit up here. Just gives that extra boost of darkness there and that. Should I come a bit higher with this? That's better. It's quite a deep shadow because remember, this is evening sun. So the evening sun on the hills is absolutely gorgeous. It's beautiful. You look out there and you just, the sun, you don't realize there's all these dips in the landscape until you actually see the evening sun. You know, you look across the day and it just looks like fields, and then in the evening time the sun catches it, and you just see all these dents and hollows and you know, in between the rolling hills, like you really see it in the evening time, and it's just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. I have to admit now, it's just amazing. So we're going to get a little bit of a light bit up here on this side of the hill here, because I'm going to lift it a bit short. So just give it a touch there. So now we're kind of getting that look of the hill across. I'm just going to drag this a bit that way. And there's a hill. I want to just see where I'm going with this. Actually, this bit is actually belonging to me. So I'm going to keep this down and just see exactly what way this hill is going. It's a nice relaxing break though from all the hassle of the last, you know, when you're painting, you just go into another world, completely into another world. So it's so different than actually it's just so different than, you know, when you turn on the news then and, you know, hear what's going on in the world. You need this break. You need a break like this just to get away from it all. And so I don't know if Karen, if you're still looking there, if you are, yes, I miss my class, our classes. It's just so weird. You can just see a little bit of the background. You can see somebody's work on the wall there. I think it's, I don't know whose it is you're looking at there. You can probably see some of the, I don't think yours is in view here. I think it's, but yes, I missed the classes terribly myself. It's all connection, but sure, at least it's still nice here to paint, and hopefully somebody can, if not now, join in. You can tune in later on and you can see it then. And I'll post up the finished picture, as I say, as well. So hopefully that will be of interest. And you can always look back, as I say, at this too. So I'm just establishing the line almost of where the background is for the foreground, because the hills are here. We also have a mid-foreground where you have light hitting the fields in the background, the large field here in the background. So this area here is actually the semi-foreground. So I'm going to go to a slightly bigger brush, not too big though at the minute. And I'm going to get another really light green, and I'm going to put a bit of our yellow into that and make that a nice bright green area here. And I'm going to drag it across in front of our hills here. So I'm going to drag it across, right? Because this actually is not the distance hill, but I'm going to do something with those distance hills in a minute. So to put them further in the back, which is an interesting kind of way of doing things. Because I want this to be brighter. I want this to be more definite, more stronger, that you know that this is the foreground and they are the background. I just have to wait a minute until that dries. The great thing about acrylics is that you can do these things because it dries so fast. You'd have to wait a little bit more longer if you were doing it for with the oils. So we have a sort of a bank coming across here. We have a kind of a bank of land, and it's quite dark. There's a brown, it's a browny green, a browny greeny blue color. So I'm going to mix a little bit of brown, a bit of the blue, and a little bit of the green together. I'm going to get quite a dark shade. And this is coming across here. It's actually from the farm across the way. It's actually just a bank of land, actually, that it's just sort of built up. And it's quite dark. Very dark, actually. I want to bring that in. It comes forwards a bit, so. but there's a light patch on it too. So the light patch, I'm going to add a bit of this light brown hair color. That's this light brown hair color, the color here I should say, and I'm going to add a bit of yellow into it. And it's just where the sunlight is catching it a little bit. A bit more yellow. I'm going to bring that across like that. We'll add a bit of shadow orange in a minute. See how far it goes across. And I'm going to come back now with my brown, my dark brown here. And I'm going to bring that back into my blue shade here with a little bit of the green that's there as well. And I'm just going to bring it, it's a bit more, so I'm going to go over some of that. Some of that is dark. And allow some of the light to hit it. Now, so we're going to get now let's move over here. And what I'm looking at here is a little tiny wall actually, going to the far field. This area is covered in lots of old stone walls, going back a couple of 100 years in many cases. Just now, I'm going to add a bit of white into the grey, that dark colour we made a minute ago, with our blue and our brown and our green. I'm adding more white into that. So it's kind of like a light grey. So I'm going to bring that across here, and I'm going to bring it across. And again, this will actually help you bring it into the picture. So I'm actually going to exaggerate because I'm actually going to bring it that way. I'm going to add little touches of white to that as well. So I kind of just, I get the feeling that there's enough white and that the sun is shining on the top of it. And I'm just sort of tipping it along really. And it turns into a kind of, I'm going to put a bit of green there, a bit of the green into the brown here, into the browny blue here. And we're going to just put a bit of there's a bit of a bank coming along there, so we'll just put a bank along there. A bit of shadow there. For a second. And I'm going to bring a slightly darker grey here. So I'm bringing a little bit of blue, a little bit of brown into that grey. And we're going to bring that across the bottom of the hair like that. It's going to go across like that. Now, what I want to do is I want to put a bit of distance into these hills, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a clean brush for a minute, a very clean brush, and I'm going to just get a tiny bit of a wetting there. And what I'm going to do is a kind of a trick for making things distant. And it kind of is a scary moment because I'm going to go back over these hills and I'm going to use it in a pale white. So if you get a white like that, just keep it put to the side here like that and wash your brush and have it almost like, if you imagine it's almost white water. Like, I don't want this white. I want it like white water. So the consistency is literally like water. And I'm going to drag it across ever so lightly on this. That's too white even. So I have to just give it, oh, so white, so very gentle. I'm so careful. Just don't want to make this It's like this is it's just literally like white water. I'm doing it lighter and lighter. I mean, it's really, really pale. It's really, really watery, this. It's so watery. It's just like, it's like there's only a hint of white in it, because otherwise you'll end up just going over what you've done. But if you do too white, don't panic, because you just add more water, because it's light, because it's still very wet. I mean, this is very wet. Not that don't want you have to wait till the under part is dry. That's why I'm saying you do it with acrylics. I'm not going over the brown bit. I'm literally just going over just the mountains, literally, or the hills, I should say. But they're called them the mountains down here, even though they're really hills. But we can't be saying that now, because everybody calls them mountains. But anyway, they're just nice, beautiful. They are amazing. It doesn't matter whether they're a mountain or a hill. They're absolutely amazing. And they're like a hidden gem in this part of the country. So I'm just going to get a little bit of white over there. And now you can see that has actually thrown that back a little bit. And I'm going to actually, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go back in to see where there's a little edge there. I'm just going to darken that. Sorry, bring that more of the brown into it. Get that dark shade into it again. And I just want to bring that up a little bit. That's it there, like that. Now I can come back now to the foreground a little bit better, to the mid foreground. It's not really foreground. Getting my nice yellowy green again. And I'm going to mix a little bit of yellow into it. And I'm just going to emphasize that line across here. And I'm going to make it nice and thick. And make it that. And by doing that, it helps to push those hills into the distance. Oh, my live stream just jumped there for a moment. So it's just helping to push those hills into the distance like that. So I'm just going to bring that across like that. Now, so there we go. That's that bit. Now I'm just going to go back to my picture again, because I want to work now towards my foreground. So this area is actually quite dark, but there is a little light from the top of the hedge kind of a thing, and it's coming across, and I'm just going to build it just very roughly. I'm going to mark in where it is. It's about here, say. So I'm just going to put that there. So now we know where our hedge thing is, okay? So this area is all that kind of field area. Now, this is why it is so important. There's a few little trees on the horizon there too, which I might put in. Put them in a minute. I'll just work to my main grass area. Now, this area is all different. If you look into grass, there's all different shades going on. So I'm going to really go a bit, do lots of different. So there's green, there's this yellow ochre, which I mentioned earlier on, and I might put out a little bit more here because it's nearly gone, or it's kind of. I'm just going to stick it in beside my green actually, so you can see it. So it's this yellow ochre here, the mustardy color, and the green. It's a bit thicker than the green one is. So I'm going to literally start giving it a bit of texture into it. So I'm going to I'm using, if you notice, a different kind of stroke I'm using now. I can, at the distance, this part I can do it a bit like that, because we're further away from the camera, as it were. And I'm actually also going to use, I won't show every time I use a different color, but basically I'm using, if you can see here, I'm going to be using these browns, the greens, the two greens, the yellow, oops, and I get it all over myself. There we go. Anyway, that's me in a class. So it's a bit awkward here. So that basically, I'm going to be using the two browns, the greens, the bit of yellow, and we're going to just work through it. So I'll just pop backwards and forwards so you'll know that these are the colors I'm using. So, okay, so the main thing what I'm trying to say is that I want you to, yes, there's a big stripe, and look at that. That doesn't matter. Use that for now. I'm going to just drag this in and out. Now see the way I've done the light bits? And I'm just going to let that, it's kind of a dab, but not a dab. It's like a running dab. It's like running along in lines dab. and just let it come across like that. And I'm using a bit of brown, and I'm going to let a little bit go out into the shadow, because sometimes it's almost like the shadow comes in on the little bits of light. And as you come closer to the camera, as it were, it becomes a bit more definite. Now, see, look, I even put a big lump of brown. I like to do these things in the middle of it, because can you see it? You can see the big lump of brown here, which wouldn't be there as such. But what I do then is I just start to put a bit of green on top of that deliberately, and you get a lovely kind of mixture. Then you don't have to mix the paint on your palette even. You can almost mix it on the actual canvas. You can put a dab of bright yellow into it, for example, and then just play that into it. So you don't have to be as, get this wonderful mix, because then what happens is it becomes too much of one mix throughout the whole thing. So you're much better to let almost literally just mix on the canvas. Allow, and you can be as casual as you like. So as I say, I'm using all these different shades. Well, I'm not using, actually I could use a bit of purple in. I might try it just with a crack. So there's a lump of purple into it. And you see, well, it's not like there it is there. And I'm not cleaning my brush in between, as you know. So you get some lovely shades going on, and you just bring these all into it like that. And you get that overall feeling of the depth of color. And as I go away from the camera, my strokes become much more sort of zigzaggy almost, because I'm still trying to get the texture, but I don't want to go up and down too much, because you wouldn't obviously see the grassy feeling as much. You see more texture as you come towards you. So distance is important in a picture. That feeling of, distance of light and shade and is the depth of it. So I'm coming in with my dark green here, and then I'm going to put in a nice little bit of dab of yellow in the middle of that, not yellow green into that. And then as I come forward, I'm starting to go up. My strokes are starting to actually become strokes downwards, as it were, tiny bits, and I can put a bit of brown into that somewhere, just with a crack, as it were. And I just say, if I squint my eyes and look at it through my squinty eyes, I actually see it better, because you don't see it. You're seeing it as a whole. You're not seeing it in terms of there's a house and there's a tree and you're just seeing a whole overall thing. It's a bit like standing far back from a picture. Similar kind of effect. But when you're up close here and you don't want to be moving backwards and forwards, which I would probably do if I wasn't doing a live stream. And I'm going to break that area up. I'm just going to move my camera out of the way now, because it's on my phone. It's in my way now. Put it over here for now, and I'll come back to it, because I'll have to check on it again. But I'm just getting over, because now at the moment I'm actually also working from the. You also sometimes you work from your head too, if you know what I mean. You have a look at the picture. It's a starting point. Depending, I mean, I'm all one for observing now. I have to admit, when I do a class, and especially if we're doing things like life drawing, anyone who knows me will know that it's all about observing. But there's times when you're doing this type of picture, and you're working from a picture, obviously, or a scene, which I can't actually. If I walked out there, I'd be able to see that view, and actually the lighting is similar. But you don't have to stick religiously to it. In other words, it's not really it's not relevant that you have to have every single beat the same. So therefore you can try and capture that in your head too. There's a lot of your head goes into it, as much as your heart, as it were, as much as the actual viewpoint that you see on your phone. I'm not one for trying to say that you must get every little dot in a picture, because it's really hard to copy something exactly, to be honest. It would do my head in, to be honest. Right? In fact, I had to do a picture once for somebody, a picture of Loch Crew, and I had to do it. Somebody loved it. They bought it at an exhibition, and she commissioned me to do another one for her sister. And I loved doing the first picture. I so enjoyed doing it. Second one, it was like, oh God, this is going to be really hard, and I had to put little people in it. And I did it, and it was okay. But then she wanted another one for another sister, I think it was. Well, I have to admit, it was probably the hardest picture I ever did. I couldn't. I was trying to copy my own picture, and it literally is nearly impossible. You can't. I said, it's really, you have to get into a mindset then of just saying, look, this one is individual, and that's what I have to do. Block that view that thought that I have to make this the same as the other one, because you couldn't. Because how could you make? Every stroke is going to be slightly different, and even the look of it, the color mix, is always going to be slightly different, no matter how accurate you are. If you think about it, if you go to a paint shop and you get you know, the color mixes, and they put it into the big machine, and they put the little drops of paint by computer, it goes in, and yet they'll tell you, do the whole wall with one tin. Don't change color in the middle of it, because even though this is done by computer, the chances are it will be slightly different. Do you know what I mean? So you can imagine now when you're actually doing this yourself, doing a picture, you'll never get it exactly the same. Well, you could if you spent forever, but then it takes away the spontaneity of the picture too. And it's so important to be spontaneous in a picture, to kind of, now you see what I'm doing? I'm just smudging this a little bit at the background, because I want to get the texture towards the foreground more. So just, yeah, a little bit more texture here. Texture here. I'm going to break this area up a little bit. As I say, you can come back and watch this later on at any stage, because when they're running for time, oh yeah, it's that time already. Well, it might take a little more than an hour, so I'll get there. And you can dip in and out, but you can kind of go off, mix up a cup of tea, come back and see how far I've come at the picture, you know, see how it goes. It's to me, I call these paintings, it's capturing the time, capturing I don't know, an atmosphere, a feeling that I had when I did the pictures, when I took the picture, as much as anything else. Or it could be a picture, even if it's a picture off the internet or something. What is it that you like about that picture? What is it that really struck you when you look at it? Is it the fact that it's you know, is it the color? Is it the depth? Or is it just the atmosphere? Sometimes it's actually the colors in a picture. Sometimes you want to get those vibrancy of colors. Sometimes you want to get that light and shade in a picture, or you want to get the depth into a picture. And other times it's just because you want to capture an atmosphere in a picture. So whatever you want to capture in the picture, that's what's important to get in it. It doesn't, you know what I mean? Rather than the actual ins and outs of every little detail. If you think, oh God, yeah, I've got that now, I really like that. Same goes for portraits. When you get a portrait and you get the likeness, just slow right down. Don't think I have to get that eye looking exactly as the picture is, because you could lose everything in the minute. Now you could get it back, but it's always a bit harder then. But as I say, nothing is impossible. You can always do it again. So I'm going to put a very dark depth here, at the dark depth. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm going to use my blue, my ultramarine blue here, and I'm going to mix it with a bit of my brown, which is a really dark shade. In fact, I rarely use black, and obviously I wouldn't use black in this, but I rarely use black. I usually use a mixture of an ultramarine mixed with maybe a burnt sienna, or a burnt umber. And that gives a really nice depth. And I might just move this to the edge where you can maybe see it a bit better, because I want this really dark. And I'm going to actually just do it like this for now. Just give it a like that, with sound effects, if you want. And then you can just do it like that. And this is just to give it the base of the kind of the hedge kind of feeling. So I'm going to just do it nice, because it gives it a nice depth to it. Because underneath, well, look, it is the darkness is underneath. The darkness is the shadow beneath. It's the beneath section you're doing here. It's under the you know, the light that's shining on the hedgerow, or here. So I'm going to just put it really crisscross, quite casual. Okay, like that. And then we're going to come in with a bit of my greens. Oops, where am I going to put this phone now? I'm running out of space. I'll have to get set up a bit better. It's a bit rough and ready here, but apologies. Okay, so we have, okay, we've got the two greens. I'm going to mix a bit of the two greens, and I'm going to bring them a bit on top. I might add a bit of my other little brown into it, my light brown. So I'm kind of getting it's kind of an olivey kind of a green, really. Now I know it's going to run into my field behind at the moment, but bear with me on that. That does not matter, because what that'll do is I will highlight that in a minute. I was just showing you earlier on where I wanted it, so, and I'm just going to bring this. I'm not going to put in too much detail at the moment. You see, it's just still kind of blobbing along, as I say. And I need another arm, really handy to vent another arm to really make life much easier. And I have to just hold it like this for now, so that I can see what I'm doing. So this is the head here. Excuse me. Now I'm just going to get that here like that. And I'm going to just, and already now I'm starting to see the way I'm doing this. Look, I'm putting kind of like these kind of stroke things on it. And the reason is because I'm starting to get that feeling of the grass feeling, even though it's in the dark. I want you to get that sort of sense of, it's kind of, actually there's a bank kind of coming up to that grass. It's kind of like, it's kind of like a, what you call it? Yeah, it's a high bank rather than a real hedge, and then there's a sort of a hedge on top. So I'm going to put a bit of it more of the olive green coming down. Is that I'm using a brush? Actually, probably use a lighter brush now. Sometimes I get, what happens, I end up using the same brush because I just forget that I have a brush in my hand. So this is a slightly smaller brush I'm using, just that I can get a better point. But I'm not using a pointy one. I'm using a flat brush because I like the flat brushes. Is the fact that sometimes they're quite handy because you can go on the edge. And again, watch how high up I'm holding it. You can get the edge, and you can when you do the edge, you can use it for grass, and then if you can use the flat for wider areas. So, and I like the fact when you do this when it's wet, because you can actually scrape as well with your end of your brush sometimes as well, and get nice little effects too. So I'm going to now. I hope you can see this building up. As I say, I'll be able to, even if you can't see it brilliantly, hopefully maybe playback mode might be better. I don't know. I'll have to look at that now, and I can see it when it's done, how it plays back. But also, you'll be able to see the technique I've used, and then you'll sort of be able to see where it is in the when you actually see the picture itself. So I'm going to get a little lighter one now, the light green, my light yellowy green. I'm just a bit too strong there. Great thing is, if you do too strong, all you do is come back and flick the darker one back through it, which is, it's really a case of working backwards and forwards in this area now at this stage. And I'm going to do a few nice little tips of the light on top of this, because remember, this is sunlight catching the very top of the hedge and a few bits of grass. And I might put a few darker ones going. I'm just going to grab another smaller brush here for a minute, tip it down there, and I'm going to use a couple of the darker ones going through here as well. So you can still go in between them. So work that through. Then I'm going to come back to my light. Where's my green? There we go. So let's have a look at the picture again. Oops, it's lost there for a minute. Just bring it in like that. And this is kind of mixture of sort of the leaf impression, the feeling of, I'll do a bit more grass now in a minute, and I have another little bit to do in it too. I want to do a little brush of trees up there, a couple of little trees, and I see a bit there I missed up there. If we can come back, I'll do that now in a minute. As I say, you can come back and you can go out and have a cup of tea, and you can come in and out and look at it whenever, and sort of tune in and see how far I've got with it as I go along and all the rest. And I might add a really dark bit actually in that corner there, because it's kind of lacking a little bit. Just give it a little bit in there. Just give it a bit of depth. As I say, this place is a very, very special place to me, in so many ways. It's you know, when there's, you know, if you're stressed out or anything, great place to go up that hill. And you're looking down, you can actually see our house from up there, well, with the binoculars. And that's the little cairn there. And as I say, it's over 5,000 years old, from before the time of the pyramids. And it's so unknown, really, although there probably was quite a few people up there today. But of course, people have to be careful now in this day and age because of the way situation everything is in. It's like a new world we're in at the moment. But if you're out in the open air and you keep away from people, it's fine. It's just distance is the problem. Having to keep away. And it's hard because I think we're, we all, like Irish people, love to have chats and sit around and stand around and have a little chat with the neighbours, and it's hard to do it from a distance now. But not impossible. And the internet is brilliant. I have to admit, there's people give out with the internet, but by God, we're glad of it nowadays in so many ways, because we really need it to keep in touch with people. So thankfully, we're living in this era in that sense. Also, from the point of view of being able to do this type of stuff here, because we can all, and see, I'm adding the darker bits in here, look, as it go along. Now, I'm going to put in a little bit of a lighter one as well. If I just get my smaller brush now, I'm going to find my littler brush. Here it is here. What I want to use a few little kind of light sort of sticky things, sticks sort of coming up. So I'm going to use a bit of the light brown, and I'm going to add a bit of white into it. Sorry, see it there? I'll just add a few. No, I'll hold it brush. Now, again, hold the brush so light, and you twirl your brush like that to just cover the brush, put not too much in a lump. And when you do it, you can actually twirl the brush. See, I'm actually twirling that brush in my hand. So I get the maximum amount of paint off it at any one time. And you want little flickers through it. Is all I want, is little flickers. Now, there's a bit of the picture here. Oh, I might go back and do my trees now in a second. Oh, sorry, wait. My phone won't actually click on because I put paint on my finger. So I have to, which is my usual, that happens to me. I go to use my phone. Now, I'm going to use a light brown. So I'm going to use that color we had a minute ago. And I'm going to add it into my dark brown here. And I'm going to just add a few little trees at the distance. So they're really just, you can't really, I almost said more, they're not really trees so much as more like hedgerow, kind of winter hedgerow. There's a bit of darker one as well into it. The leaves are just, the only buds are really just starting to come out at the moment. So most of the trees are still kind of, well, it's still bare really. So I'm just going to add a little bit along on top of this in place. It's kind of like a light brown really, but just gives a little bit of a, I'm going to bring it up a little bit there. So just get a little bit of a line of things across there now. So there's a what we have in the foreground here is we have an old tree. So I'm going to come in here with a very dark, the brown blue that we did before, and I'm going to mark a stump of it. I might use a bigger brush slightly, not a really big brush, a smaller, bigger brush. A smaller, bigger brush, if that makes sense. So I'm going to use the blue, ultramarine, and I'm going to use my brown, and I'm going to mix them. So it's really dark. There's a dark shade here. And I'm going to start getting some of these branches in. It's like a stumps. These are like, it's like they've been cut, these actually. They've been actually because the hedge cutters were out, that's why. I'm just going to bring across these, a few of these across here like this. They don't have to be exactly the same as them in everywhere. And I'm actually going to bring one coming up here. And there's a reason why. I know in the picture I don't see it like that, but the reason is because when you do that, you sub something into the very foreground, it shoves everything else into the background. It's a great way of giving of making depth in a picture is put something in the foreground and everything else has to go into the background. I just want to check this on the foreground here, yeah. Okay, sometimes I have to look at it on the foreground because if you look at something from the side all the time, you could be drawing something totally different than you actually think you're drawing. It's a very dangerous thing to do. Well, not dangerous thing, but I've done it before and been drawing circles for a class and stood at the side. And when I look back, everybody's drawing ovals, and I realize, oh, because I've just drawn an oval because I wasn't standing in front of it. So yes, I've learned my lesson that way. Even though it's something you have to keep reminding yourself not to do, is to always make sure is to always look at the picture on the front as well as the side view. Now I'm going to put highlights on that. So I'm going to mix a bit of our I'm going to add a bit of this color here. We have this sort of browny white, and then I'm going to add a bit of yellow into it. So it's kind of like, you notice I don't clean the brush all the time that much there. So it's a brownie, it's a little bit of this brown, a bit of white, and a bit of yellow into it. Okay. So when we put it on, we're going to get a bit of sunlight on the picture. So now I'm going to come back and fix these in a second. Now it's just roughed in. I'm going to get a small brush as well. Oops. Light is coming from the right hand side. Always remember, that's one thing, always remember where the light's coming from in a picture. It's very important. Decide, if you don't know where, just make it, well, in this picture it's pretty obvious because it's evening time and the sun is coming from the right hand side as it does. But if it's, sometimes it's not obvious in a picture, you might decide you might not need too much shadow. But sometimes it's just, it makes it, you can just put in your own bit of shadow because it does help to kind of give it that, again, it helps to give depth, shadow does, and it gives, now I'm just going to smudge. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm taking it off the brush, so I'm just wiping it off, and I'm just smudging the divide between the light and the shade there, you see? Because we don't want a harsh line down in between. And we can every so often take the color off the brush because actually you repaint it, you build up enough paint on the brush for it to actually repaint itself almost. So just smudge it like that. See what I'm doing? It's almost like a movement like that. Softening that edge there. Look. Soften it, soften it, soften it. Soften it there. So I'm going to come back with my dark one. I'm just really just strengthening the lines really, and I might just put another little little baby ones in here. You can kind of do as many as you want of these. Now, when you're doing branches, actually the best way to come from the branch out rather than going the other way. If you go on from the branch out, because if you think about it, natural spot, a bit of water on that one. Now, twigs, branches are naturally thicker when they join the actual tree. So I'm just going to mark that a bit. So it's actually better to move out from the branch and work out, and then you just let it flick, and you look how light I hold my brush. You just hold your brush very lightly. Paint on it. It's handy to have paint on the brush when you're going to paint. start just stretching a bit here, just to try and. I'm just smudging a little bit there. I like back to a little bit of light bits in places here. And too much on the brush at the same time, it just goes into a blob. I like to look at these edges here. And because I have a dark background here, just at this point here, I'm adding the little light branches in instead. So it makes a contrast against the dark. So it's a handy little trick to use. Try and use light against dark. And now I want to put in, if I just see the picture again. Now let's have a look. Yes, we have two little poles coming up here. So we have a pole here, a fence pole. If I go back to the picture again. And it's sort of sticking out of the thing. So I'm going to just put a light bit there, and there's another one just about, I think, here. I'll put another one about here. Now, I'm just going to leave it light for a moment, like that. And it kind of goes down into the hedge, so it kind of disappears into it. I'm leaving them a little bit sideways because they're just, no. Now we're going to come back with the dark now on top of that. So we go back in with our blue and our brown, the dark brown that we used, and the blue. And I'm just going to get a bit more blue into it, maybe. We're going down the left side now. Remember, it's the light is coming from the right, so the left will be where the darkness is. I'm going to come back with a skinnier brush now, a thin little fine brush here. I'm going to get a bit of white here, and I'm going to add it to the. Oh, yeah, there's a bit of white here, and I'm adding it to that light color that we had in the middle. This one here. And I'm just going to very lightly. Sometimes I lean on my hand like this, just give it a. So we've got like the light hitting the pole on the top. Little flicker of it coming into the middle, because remember they're rough poles, it's a rough wood, so it's not going to be all perfectly smooth. And the same on this one here, side. Just bring it down nice and light there. Now I'm just going to come back up with a bit of grass on top of that pole, because remember the poles are in behind the it's going to be a yellowy green color, and we just drew a few little net there. Nice few little light yellowy strokes coming through. I'm going to put a few strokes here on this. I'm just touching up little bits here now. That light of the far field. And put some little bits of yellow going through the grass here. And there's a line, a very dark line that's like the wire going through it, you know, the fence wire. So I'm just going to see what way that is now. Yep, so there's a line and it's going to be, it is dark, yeah. So again, our brown and our blue, our old reliables, our ultramarine and our burnt umber. Nice old reliable, just give it a bit of a mix up there. Together, good mix. And just I'm going to draw a line. Now, I'm not even going to panic about doing it the whole way. I don't want to get it. It doesn't have to say, oh my God, how am I going to draw this? It's not going to be straight, you know, just do little flickers. And it has a kind of a, let's get a bit of a point more on the brush, wet it a bit. There's a few flickers of the, it's kind of got a, it's like chicken wiry kind of, that type of thing. So it's got it's sort of a diamond shape on it. So I'm just going to give that a little, but again, I'm not doing this, if you see it's real hit and miss, it's just an indication of it. Just gives it a little depth again. Again, it helps to throw things in the background. So you don't have to be doing this perfect. A little bit through the tree to brush it so that it's there's a little bit of the light of this coming through the tree as well. The light's catching a bit of the, you know, yeah. Little flickers of light, there's darken that bit in there as well. Oops, bit of a lump on that. And I might just come back and give a little bit of white, more white, just on the tips of these clouds in place. A bit of green in there, sort of green on it. Got up that little bit there. I get a tiny bit more of the dark on the edge of that tree. This is literally just tipping up tiny bits here, and I think I think now, I think we're just about done. And here we are, and here is the picture. Am I going the wrong way? You see it there? I will post a picture of that now on Facebook, but I just want to have another quick look over it. I know I'm moving it a little bit to the side, but I might just, now that I'm here, it's funny when you look back at it again, even in there, I'm just going to add a touch more light to these trees. Just a touch more. Those flickers more. It's amazing how little tiny flickers make all the difference sometimes. You know, it's not often the big thing in a picture that makes a difference. You look at a picture, I often look at it and I think, oh, God, I really like that little bit. And it could be a tiniest little blob of light that just catches your eye and you think, oh, that, you know, so I've smudged it, but now I go back and I flicker little. It's weird how it is. It's the little things. Yeah, and so there we are. And that's it, sunset, or evening sun on Lough Crew. I'm going to post that up, take a picture of it now, and I'll post it up. And hopefully you can look back at the video and you can be able to follow it. And tomorrow, please God, I'm going to do a class for children at 12 o'clock in the morning. And I have a request to do a wolf. So that is what I will do. And any more requests for pictures that you'd like me to do or like to see done, please feel free to let me know, because I'd love to hear from you all. And thank you so much and for looking in, and see you again soon. Hopefully I'll be doing another one on, hopefully on either Monday or Tuesday. I'll let you know anyway, near the date. All right, thank you very much, and lovely to see you. Bye-bye.